So thyroid, parathyroid. Um, all right. Let us. So I'm going to share the modules here. What you are going to notice is I've created a new module called Research Presentation Discussions. This is going to be kind of your last official assignment. That's going to be part of the research project. This, if you look at this here, it says, please look over and add to the discussion on at least 3 of the presentations created by our class. So you'll have heard them, but then I've also uploaded their slide presentation so you can look at it and review it. It says you must comment on the 3 presentations immediately following yours. And it should be something a little more than like, oh, great job, or that was interesting. You know, try to say something that really kind of adds to the discussion. It said if you're at the bottom, just wrap around to the top. You can add to anyone you want, but you have to do at least the 3 after you. This way everybody is going to get commented on by at least 3 other people. Otherwise, sometimes you get where everybody comments on one thing and other people get kind of left in the dust. It says you should also respond to the comments. So people will make comments on yours. You should respond something back to what they have to say. And I'm saying here, please make your initial comments like within the next week, because otherwise the people won't have a chance to respond to your comments. So sometime in the next week, find your way into this discussion section and comment on at least the 3 presentations after you. Latest, the discussions are going to be locked on Friday of next week, of finals week. And then if we take a look, let's go back. Basically, they're just all here. So like if you, let's say you were Lily Bryan, you would do Alexia, Courtney, and Maya, the 3 after you. If you were Chris, though, and you're at the bottom, you'd do Lindsay, but then you would go back up to the top and do Raina, Brittany, and Haley. So that's that kind of just wrap around. So you just do whatever your name is, you do the 3 comment. So let's say I go into here, I click on that. You'll see, it says comments should be thoughtful, relevant, and engage the material. You will not see your classmates' post until you post your own work. It's to ensure that you have to think through your initial post and don't just kind of copy other people's stuff. You can challenge others' ideas, but not personally. Don't say, how can you think that? That's stupid. Also, if you do challenge, back it up. And also I wrote here, sometimes it's better to be kind than to be right. Maybe they could have done something a little better or something, but there is something nice in there. Try to support what they've done rather than try to make them feel bad about what they've done. That's, in general, that's a good thing to think about anyway. But here, like, you could see here's, like, you're going to see this today. You'll see Courtney talking about energy drinks and their effects on health. Here's going to be her presentation. I transformed them just into PDFs because it takes way less memory in the system. Sometimes it messes up the font, so I'm sorry about that. And then there's, you just get to put stuff in the discussion underneath. Again, write what you have to say about her thing, if that's you're doing with that, and then she'll get to respond to you and la 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 la. So any questions about that? Okay. So what we're going to do now is we are going to continue with our presentations. I don't really care what order we do them in. I do want to make sure that people try, we don't have as much time as I would have liked. I think we can do this if people really just kind of get through the main material and we just kind of keep things rolling. So I would request, take enough time to cover your material, but definitely, kind of try to stay focused so we can have everybody share. I am going into my little timer here now. Is there anybody that wants to? We're going to do a few. We'll take a break, obviously, but let's do a few, and then we'll take another break.
I'll go first.
All right, so Leah is going to be talking now, and what again, like I mentioned last time, even though I know people think about what it's going to be like when they're trying to talk, just kind of give her your attention. She's going to talk about the effectiveness of xylitol containing chewing gums in caries prevention. So I'm going to let go of control here and hand it over to Leah Lay.
All right, let's see. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
There is a hum. Do you hear that hum? Sounds like some weird like a fax thing. Do other people hear that?
Yeah,
is it gone?
I can hear
Yeah,
that.
I hear it too.
No, it's kind of distracting if you can figure out what that is.
Might be like your computer fan.
What was that?
It might be like your computer fan. You know, when your computer's like been running. For
my fans is on right now.
So maybe okay. Well, it's okay. So let's roll with it.
All right, let's see here.
All right, here we go.
Yes.
All right, let's I'm going to talk about the effectiveness of xylitol containing chewing gums and caries prevention. So dental caries has been a major oral disease in the past and continues so in the present. Carcinogenic sugars in the presence of bacteria Streptococcus mutans or S mutants have been recognized as the major cause for the dental caries. Studies have said the consumption of xylitol could help to prevent caries. Xylitol is available in many forms, which decreases plaque formation, bacterial adherence, and inhibit growth of S mutants. So we will find out what dental caries is, what causes it, how it occurs, and the effect of using the xylitol chewing gums as sugar substitute in caries prevention. So let's look at the history of dental caries. There are diverse communities of microbes that live as biofilms embedded in an extracellular matrix in human oral cavity. In the 1881, the chemoparasitic theory originated by W.D. Miller is universally accepted, explaining a combined effort of the acids and the oral microorganisms in tooth decalcification. So as you can see, this is called the Stefan Curve in the 1940. It shows within the first 10 minutes of consuming sugar, the pH drops below to the critical point, which is the 5.0. So, and this is the Venn diagram. It shows the interdependent of plaque and diet into decay. As you can see, so this circle here presents the environment And this one is the bacteria, which is the S mutans. And this is the host, which is the saliva or the human body. And then let's see here. So the bacteria is the Streptococcus, is the first inhabitant of the oral cavity that can be acquired right after birth and play an important role in the oral microbiota. It is directly related to development of dental caries due to the excessive acidity in the oral environments.
So Leah, one thing you might, I'm not sure everybody's going to totally know dental caries. You might want to
Oh,
just give it a more like common name so people are all like more comfortable with what exactly you're talking about.
so dental caries is pretty much it is, it's the cavity in your teeth.
Yeah, it's just a fancy name for cavities.
Yes, it's cavity. All right, so let's see here. So streptococci are well known for their ability to integrate a large range of carbs by glycolysis. So as you can see, this is the metabolic pathway of the bacteria, how it converts the glucose into the pyruvates, and when there's the lack of oxygen and a lot of carbs, it produces the lactates, or the homolactic fermentation occurs. When the carbs is used up and there's the presence of oxygen, it produces formate, ethanol, or acetates as an alternative fermentation products. So because the production of lactic acid creates fast acid environments, it allows streptococcus species to outcompete acid-sensitive microorganisms. So most streptococci are considered elective anaerobes and are susceptible to growth inhibited by oxygen. These organisms are endogenous until these due place for stubborn adherence of many of these species. Adhesion-capable organisms stick to the saliva pellicle on the tooth, which is a thin cellular organic film that forms on any type of surface upon exposure to saliva. The saliva is the biological fluid and a collection of bacteria in oral cavity.
You can just use your own words, Leah, and just kind of describe it. Kind of. I think because we want to kind of keep things rolling. Rather, in these kind of talks, typically people don't read directly off. They tend to use the presentation as a to help with the story. But you can just use your own words and kind of more in a nutshell. What is the take home message from your slide here?
Okay, so pretty much the organism are endogenous and the tooth is the ideal place for it to stick to. And since the saliva is the biological fluid and it accumulates the bacteria, and because of the environment, it creates the biofilm or the plaque. So as you can see, this is the like when you consume the sucrose, it turns into the acidic environment, and since it stayed longer and took longer to become neutral compared to the complex starches, it will produce more acidic environment that changes the matrix and the structural shift, which cause the demineralization in the tooth. So as you can see, dental caries is the infectious disease, and it causes the demineralization due to the biofilm. And because of the acid attack, it will start to dissolve the tooth enamel. And then because so the microbial colony in the tooth can withstand the mild disturbances in its environment without causing changes to its structure and composition. But if the disturbance is too severe or persistent, it changes to the equilibrium shift. And the organism that cannot survive in the harsh environment will die, while those are capable of surviving in such conditions will thrive. And then the benefits of using sugar substitute, it has many benefits, which is reduce the calories intake, the body weight. It inhibits glucan synthesis from sucrose by the bacteria as mutants. And then it will increase, decrease the number of the bacteria in saliva and plaque. So xylitol is the 5-carbon sugar alcohol, which is commonly used as a sweetener in the sugar-free candies. The first chewing gum is developed in Finland in 1975, and then followed by the US. Because the xylitol is non-fermentable by plaque bacteria, it reduces the growth and accumulation of the oral bacteria and prevent plaque adhesion. So it also increases the production of saliva in oral cavity. And another benefit of it is the cost of using the xylitol and the long-lasting effects that up to years and years of using the xylitol chewing gums. So this is the research data based on the study that is conducted by using a crossover design on the 2 different types of chewing gums on 32 subjects aged 18 to 35 whose oral hygiene was categorized as moderate or poor. So let's see, so the subject were instructed to take 3 gums per day after breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They were required to chew each gum for 15 minutes. So as you can see, for the first stage, the poor oral hygiene group that used xylitol before and after, if you look at the difference in means number, it definitely reduces in half, which is the almost 50% compared to those use PK gums in poor oral hygiene group. So same thing in the second stage, the results were pretty persistent to the first stage, that is 50, almost 50%. So in terms of salivary levels, it also showed that there's an increased amount of saliva during the 2 stages of chewing gum.
So you need to finish up soon. So try to speed up because we're getting pretty far.
Okay, so in conclusion, it is so dental caries or cavity is preventable in its early stages, and replacing sucrose with a suitable substitute to prevent the dental caries is wide open as an option. So based on the evidence, xylitol chewing gums are effective in reducing saliva levels of the bacteria as mutants, especially in poor oral hygiene. and a long-term use of xylitol chewing gums can reduce the growth of the bacteria in saliva and dental plaque. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, sorry, I kind of got into, you know, how it works, well, you know, how it creates the acidic environments, and but any questions? Wait, hold on. I can't hear you.
Oh, that's sorry. This was all about xylitol. I was thinking about all those other, sucralose and all the other sweeteners that are also out there. Is this the same basic story, no matter just sugarless gum in general, or is there something about xylitol that was special here?
So yes, it is. So compared to, so if you look at the conventional chewing gums that mostly sold at the market, most of them, I would say, 90% or 99% have sucrose in it. So
Right. No, I know. I was just saying there's other artificial sweeteners. So I was just curious about that. You talked about
I would say without the artificial flavors, it's purely xylitol gums without artificial flavors.
I mean other non-sucrose sweeteners. There's other, xylitol is just one of a number that are used in currently marketed gums. So I was just kind of curious.
Oh, well, yeah, that I don't know.
All right. Any other questions for her? All right. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, dental. I mean, oh my God, that first picture, I've never seen that look. That made me like,
Yeah, I've seen it worse.
so yeah, and in general, there's different ways that people present things. Like if you go to a conference that's more in the humanities, it's actually very typical for people just to read directly, and you just sit there as they read things. It's science conferences. It typically is more kind of, you have a presentation that supports your story, but people are more, they might use notes to help make sure they cover everything, but it tends to be less just of reading verbatim. It tends to be more of a kind of, I'm telling you the story and here's the supporting material you can watch as we're going here. But that happens to be, in different types of disciplines, there are different standard conventions. All right, so who's gonna go next?
I'll go next.
There's Mara Beam, thank you. And I would just remind, try to stay like I'd say you want to cover your stuff, but err on the side of trying to not go over 10 minutes. Otherwise, people are not going to have a chance to share. All right, so we now have okay, hold on. I where is it? I have it here. I want to give you your proper introduction. Beam is talking about collagen and the effects on the human body. Take it away.
Can you see my screen or no?
You should be able to share. I don't see you. I don't see your screen yet. Oh, no, there you go.
Got it. Oh, sweet.
You're set.
All right. So I basically did collagen and the effects on the human body. So my why, or the reason I kind of chose this topic, was there are many types on the market to choose from, specifically like supplement collagen The interest is if it really did have the benefits that were advertised. So some claim they do benefits on hair, nails, joints, skin. So I just want to take a deeper dive on that. Specifically in joint, that's what kind of drove my paper. And important, but seems to be left out of discussion. So I took anatomy, and I don't know if anybody else did. When we covered cartilage and joints, I don't remember ever touching on the topic of collagen, which seemed to, throughout my research, seemed to cover a lot of these kind of topics. So collagen, there are many types of collagen. I think there's like over 10 or even up to 20, but the most common ones are the 1 through 3. There are major components of tendons and ligaments. They're a protein that plays a protective role in joints. So as we know, its joint is a bone to bone, and it maintains integrity of tissues. So this picture just kind of shows how collagen sometimes comes in. You can either take it as a pill or it's kind of as a powder like that. These are just some common pictures of collagen you can find anywhere, from thousands of them. This blue one's actually the one I always see at Costco, so that's what kind of got me thinking about doing collagen for that. And so collagen has been shown to absorb intestinally. So as we've learned, stuff absorbs in the small intestine. So that's kind of where collagen falls. And it can be extracted from many animal sources. So if we go back to this picture, it just kind of shows, it shows the cow, the fish, the chicken. So it's just kind of where collagen originates from and where we get it. And hemostatic properties and low antigenicity. So from my understanding, antigenicity is like foreign matter is able to bind to it. So collagen has low antigenicity, so not much foreign matter can bind to it. So throughout the research, I got some benefits on the skin. So it improves elasticity, provides structure for the skin, hydration, and collagen density in dermis, which is just skin. So we have a picture of young skin, normal skin, and old skin. So for the old skin, obviously it's never going to go back to the young skin, but taking these collagen supplements can, maybe go back to the normal, but decrease these kind of divots that we see here that make us look wrinkly and older. So, and then there was also some benefits on the joint. It reduced joint pain, improved mobility, helped reduce bone density loss, which is kind of like osteoporosis. So not making enough bone or not having enough, or both. And it increased muscle strength. Although I didn't really touch much of muscle strength in my paper, it did come across in a study I found where there was like 120 subjects taking 1 gram of collagen for like 12 weeks. And then they found out that, yeah, the joint pain does reduce. And they also found that the muscle strength does increase, which I found interesting because, when I think of collagen, I don't really associate it with muscle or strength. So, and then osteoarthritis, which is a common form of arthritis in many people. It's a joint affecting disease. So the protective cushion called the cartilage wears over time. So this picture so this bone right here on the left-hand side, that's a nice healthy joint. You got the cartilage, and then as it wears over time, you can just kind of see it's like wearing out. So then the bones are just kind of hitting against each other, which causes that bone to bone, which causes pain. So as collagen accumulates in the cartilage, it reinforces it. Like I said before, we probably won't be able to get it like fully restored, but it will help just decrease some of that pain. So due to the accumulation, it tries to regain that protective cushion and decrease the pain, thus reducing pain, which then improves mobility. So throughout the research done, I can come to a consensus that collagen is an important factor that keeps the body away from pain. Like everything else, there are counter arguments or studies that show otherwise. There was this one where, so people are taking these collagen supplements, but there was one where it showed that taking collagen naturally in your diet So in bone broth or in chicken skin, fish is a lot healthier than just taking these supplements because they're also expensive as well. But based on my research and everything I found within the articles and the completed research, collagen supplements can improve joint health, which is kind of the main question driving this research and the reason I just kind of chose to talk about it. And whoops, these are just kind of the main references I use to come up with these bullet points that I got here for my presentation. And yep, that is it.
Any questions for Marbeam?
I have a quick question. So in your research papers, did they say they orally ingested collagen, or was
Yes.
it injected in the joints?
No, it was orally. There was also some studies about injection, but I didn't really go into those. But yeah, it was either orally. So like the powder in the picture I showed, you can either put it in your coffee or something, or just take the pill. But yeah, it was mostly all orally.
And I have a question too. So can you only get collagen that is from animal sources, or are there like plant-based options?
I only found animal sources. So from like we pretty much extract them from like the bones of the cows.
Bones, yeah.
Yeah,
makes
but
sense.
I didn't find any other plant resources out there. From algae. Oh, thanks, Rena.
Oh,
I
sorry.
have a question.
Chris?
Did the authors talk about how it increased muscle strength?
Decrease?
Increased muscle strength?
Not specifically. It was just kind of on the study I specifically looked at, it was more like of a side thing. It was like, oh, it increased the joint. Or yeah, it was focused on that. And like, oh, by the way, it increased their muscle strength as well. So I just found that interesting. So let's just do it on there.
Yeah, that also seems strange. That's not so intuitive to me.
Yeah.
How much are in these studies, like how much additional collagen are they supplementing, like for how long?
And some it varied. Some were 12 weeks, couple or a month or so. But
Do you know like how many milligrams or grams they're eating?
some were 40 milligrams. And then, but yeah.
Because collagen is just like it's the main protein in your connective tissue. I mean, it's cartilage is basically collagen, like all of the collagen all of the collagen fibers, even the reticular fibers are collagen, just in a more networky thing. So it's like when I was small, people would just take little things of Knox brand unflavored gelatin, which is basically collagen, and say, oh, it's going to help your skin or something. Before you buy these supplements at Costco, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. It's we've been on since 10, so let's take a break. Maybe, gosh darn, we're gonna run out of time. We'll have to figure out how to do this. But let's take a 20-minute break, just because I know people need to take care of stuff at home. So let's come back at 11:30, and we'll do at least a few more of these, and also talk about the lab at practical. So let's come back at 11:30. Okay. All right, so yeah, the reality is there's 1 hour left. And we have 2 things that I still want to do in that 1 hour. We are obviously not going to get everybody's presentation done. And I do want to make sure we spend some time covering the lab stuff and go over some of the main points and be able to discuss any questions people have before we go into the lab exam on Thursday. So I think we'll maybe do 2 more. And then, the other ones are up on the web and the module. So you'll be able to kind of at least get the basic sense of what they had to say. Some of them actually even have lecture notes that are optional to open, close, or open as part of the PDF, so you can see that. And then you can still ask the authors questions and they can respond to you. So there still will be kind of a back and forth. But I do apologize. I thought we'd get through everything, but it's clear we're not. And so I don't know if there's anyone in particular who particularly was interested in presenting.
I'll just get it done.
What's that?
I said I'll just get it done. I'll jump into mine.
Okay, so here we're going to have Amado Escobar talking about flaxseed and benefits on cancer, cardiovascular disease, and glucose regulation. So give it up for Amado Escobar. You should have control of the sharing now.
Wait, start from the beginning. I'll play from the beginning right there. I don't know why it's not sharing. I press share. Does everybody see? No?
No. So share screen, and then you have to click on the screen you want to share, probably, or either the screen or the app.
Oh, I see. Okay. Why doesn't let me? Maybe just privacy. I don't know. Let me see.
The other thing is I could run it for you because I have your.
I modify it. Let's see here. This is so unfortunate.
Here, so Amado, I am going to run it for you, and you just tell me when to go to the next slide. How's that?
Okay. So the main reason why I decided to do this topic is because when I was 23, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer, and ever since then I changed my diet, my lifestyle, and I changed my lifestyles into more natural. I embrace more natural products. So I did this research on the flaxseed to get much deeper into it. So I will be describing, my objective will be, I will presenting to you the statistics, the treatment, the properties of flaxseed, and also there's scientific evidence of the claims the flaxseed may reduce or prevent cancer progression, and how flaxseed is a chemopreventative. Oh, sorry. Will you go to the next slide? Yeah. So those are the objective, and also how the flaxseed helps in the cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and how it's regulated. Basically, for diabetes, there's not much research, but there's evidence that it does really helps to regulate blood glucose. We can go to the next slide. So according to the World Health Organization, in 2012, there were 14 million cases that people were diagnosed with cancer. 8.5 million of them die. So that's a lot of percentage that people die from cancer. Also, it is estimated that there will be a 23.6 million cases per year until the year 2030. The most common type of cancer is colon. Sorry. The most common treatment to treat cancer are surgeries, radiotherapy, chemotherapy drugs, immunotherapies. And yet these type of treatment that are given to the patients are not efficient. They might, because, you know, as we know, I work in the healthcare industry as a pharmacy tech, and I know the chemotherapy drugs, you know, they have the side effects, which causes cancer too. Let's see. Also, the World Health Organization states that 1/3 of death of cancer is due to bad eating habits and lack of physical activity. And I do agree with it because, you know, at that time when I was at that age, at 23, my lifestyle was horrible. We can move to the next slide. I didn't integrate much into that slide, but I want to talk about the cardiovascular disease and diabetes. About 2,200 patients die daily in the United States, and this is due to the cardiovascular disease. And this can be integrated into or translated into one death every 40 seconds. Also, cardiovascular disease is the buildup of fat, cholesterol, as we know, and substances in the arterial walls, which causes obstruction of the blood flow. Basically, flaxseed helps to reduce all of this. Pharmaceutical products offers a relief to cardiovascular disease, but it doesn't help much, you know, because it contributes to other side effects. As I said early, the type 2 diabetes and other related disease shows that one person dies every 7 seconds due to diabetes and its complications. Oxidative stress also plays a significant role on pathologies of diabetes. If we can move to the next slide. The property of flaxseed. So flaxseed, its scientific name is Linum eusitatissimum, also known as a linseed. Flaxseed contains numerous nutrients such as alpha-linolenic acid, which is omega-3. It contains fibers, lignins, which it can ultimately support our well-being. Flaxseed lignin contains a complex class of polyphenols, phytochemicals, and this name, which I cannot pronounce, I would just say the abbreviation, which is SDG. There has been an increased interest in studying this plant because it contains antioxidants, anti-inflammatory properties, anti-atherosclerosis, anti-estrogenic properties, and is suggested to reduce the risk to protect against cancer, cardiovascular disease, and reduce blood glucose levels. If we can move to the next slide. So here we can see what the literature claims on the flaxseed biocompounds. It claims to have all these benefits, as I mentioned earlier: anti-oxidative, anti-inflammatory, anti-carcinogenic, and anti-proliferative properties, anti-hypertensive, and anti-metastatic, antimicrobial, and induces apoptosis to cells. And then we can move to the next one. So here we can see the multi-step processes of cancer. So basically, cancer includes three types of processes. You got the initiation of cancer, the promoter, and the progression. Basically, what happens the initiation is that when the individual is exposed to carcinogen agents such as X-rays, like CT scans. So basically, also the chemotherapy, drugs. Basically, these products causes damage to the DNA, and once that happens, the DNA mutates. Then they also move to the promoter. The promoter includes like tobacco, um, nitrites can be a promoter as well. So, and then lastly, you have the progression, which is the last step. And this one no longer depends on the exposure of the carcinogen because the damage to the DNA has been done already. So how does flaxseed helps to all of this? Well, as I said, flaxseed contains the phytochemicals which blocks and suppress carcinogenesis, and carcinogens initiates carcinogenesis, which involve genetic mutation. Phytochemicals are capable of interfering with the cellular and molecular processors in various stages. In clinical studies, when patients consume flaxseed, 45% of the cancer got reduced. And epidemiological research shows that 20% of cancer is due to prolonged inflammation. Basically, when when people go through a long period of inflammation, this tends to cause cancer as well. So it is also said that 35% of all cases of cancer is attributed to poor diet. We can move to the next one. So now we move to the cardiovascular system. So basically, flaxseed helps to reduce the cholesterol, the bad cholesterol levels in the system. And the studies also show with patients had a dietary diet of flaxseed, it showed to reduce the low diastolic blood pressure, and it helps to reduce the systolic blood pressure. Also, chronic heart disease is related to oxidative stress and overweight, inflammation, and elevated blood pressure. So basically, flaxseed helps with all of this, and this has been proven scientifically. Also, it helps to reduce the oxylipins. Oxylipins is involved in increasing inflammation. Basically, when we eat food like chicken or eggs, this type of food increases the omega-6, which it causes all these inflammations in our system. So when you consume flaxseed and its properties, the phytochemicals, because it contains the omega-3s, it helps to reduce all of this. And we can move to the next one. So flaxseed on type 2 diabetes. The research shows that SDG helps to reduce the C-reactive protein, which is affiliated with the insulin resistance, which is in type 2 patients. This is how flaxseed helps. Also, SDG slows down the development of type 2 diabetes too, when individual is exposed of having a diet of flaxseed. It also, in the studies, they found that flaxseed reduced the amount of glucose present in the patient's urine. And also, in a clinical trial, flaxseed was given to mice. The mice had type 1 diabetes, and it really helped, but for human consumption, it's not known if it will help with type 1 diabetes. Also, in another clinical trial, flaxseed was given to elderly patients, and it really improved their fecal, and it lowered the glucose levels. It reduced the triglycerides. The patients lost weight, and it reduced the bad cholesterol, which is the LDL, and improved the HDL levels in the patient. And we can move to the next one. As a conclusion, dietary flaxseed provides a variety of biochemical compounds. It provides enough evidence that it mitigates, it reduces tumor growth and progression. And literature supports that flaxseed may help to prevent or treat cancer. Flaxseed biochemicals provides a multi-target effect in the human body that helps against apoptosis, cell signaling, cardiovascular disease, regulates blood glucose, anti-inflammatory, hormonal balance, and cell proliferation. Uh, oh, every fruit and vegetables and seeds contains phytochemicals, and the research shows that flaxseed contains high amounts of it. And this is it. Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't share my slides. It couldn't be much better.
But still, that worked well.
Any question in regards to the flaxseed or any of the symptoms?
Yeah, I have a question. How were they consuming the flax seeds in the trial, and how much were they consuming? Like, if I want to reap the benefits, do I eat
about 40 grams? About 40 grams, and the way they consume it was through ground flaxseed or as a whole, because the whole seed contains the essentials in it. In other studies, in some studies, it showed in the short term they didn't see much difference, but when they exposed to the long term, they saw a significant difference. So yeah, it's better to consume it as a whole or ground flaxseed. And the elderly patient, it was given to them in a muffins, so they saw a significant improvement on them.
Okay, awesome. I mean, they're if people have played with them, they're kind of like mucilaginous. So like when they're good for binding. Like if you're making like crackers or something, you can use them to be the thing that holds everything together. But then they've got this interesting. I mean, mucilaginous is kind of the fancy but slimy.
Yeah, they're looking into do more research. Well, to get basically society used to this type of treatment. Oh, it'd be nice to have a combination of the pharmaceutical products and natural products as well.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so I think we have probably time for one more, as long as someone goes relatively focused. Does anybody want to be the anchor for? All right, so we have Chris, who is now. Let me get rid of this thing here. So Chris O'Connor, with probably something dear to most people's hearts, definitely mine, coffee and health.
All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about coffee and how it affects you. I'm an avid coffee drinker myself, so I was curious about what it does to you and if it's good for you or bad for you. So coffee is extracted from the coffee plant, and then the beans are roasted, then brewed. When you brew coffee, it makes over 800 volatile compounds. Most notably are the caffeine, which is a hot subject, chlorogenic acids, polyphenols, diterpenoid alcohols. And this is really important to talk about because it's estimated that 49%, or about half of the US population, drinks coffee every day, and even 76% of people reported that they drink coffee. So caffeine. Caffeine is probably the main reason why people drink coffee. We touched on this a little bit in class already. It's an adenosine receptor antagonist. There's 4 different subtypes in your body, and it binds non-specifically to each one of them. So the most common ones that I came across in research were A1 and A2A. The adenosine receptor regulates cyclic AMP pretty much. And depending on which receptor is activated, it can either increase or decrease cyclic AMP. Adenosine receptors are located throughout your body, and they perform different functions. And depending on which receptor is activated, obviously it's going to have a different effect. And just in general, caffeine content in coffee is about 65 to 135 milligrams per cup. So caffeine in the brain. Caffeine is hydrophobic, so passes the blood-brain barrier with ease. It promotes wakefulness and reduces sleepiness. That's kind of the awake feeling we get from it. It binds to the A1 and A2A receptors in your basal forebrain, most notably nucleus accumbens, which is part of your basal forebrain. Nucleus accumbens is involved with the reward center and motivational centers of your brain. It's dopaminergic, so it's going to increase the amount of dopamine receptors and increase the amount of dopamine release, specifically in the nucleus accumbens, and that's kind of going to make you feel more awake as well as those other basal forebrain areas. So a couple promotional things: it makes you concentrate a little bit better acutely, and it increases your reaction time, and it helps with memory formation. But one thing to note is that in a review article, they said that chronic caffeine intake doesn't really affect your cognition all that much. So obviously, if it affects your sleep, it's going to affect your sleep cycle because it's making you feel more awake. So ultimately, caffeine is going to reduce your sleep efficiency. It's going to make you spend more time falling asleep. And it's going to negatively affect those slow wave sleep cycles. So it's just kind of going to make them more aberrant or wonky. So you're going to have less efficient sleep. And one study showed that drinking coffee as much as 6 hours before bed will make your sleep cycles negatively impacted. And it's interesting to note that because the half-life that I came across for most of the articles said that caffeine is about 4.4 hours, and that's less than, of course, 6 hours. But of course, as you can imagine, the study also noted that drinking it closer to bed is going to have a more profound negative impact on your sleep. So I found this really interesting. Caffeine has a very complex role in your cardiovascular system. So adenosine receptors are located on your sinoatrial and atrioventricular nodes in your heart. Activating A1 receptors with adenosine is going to reduce your heart rate and attenuate the catecholamines, epinephrine and norepinephrine. One thing to know is that caffeine in general is considered a sympathetic activator, so it's going to stimulate those catecholamines. So it also has a very complex role in vasomotor control, so vasodilation and constriction. So it can directly bind to adenosine receptors in your endothelial cells, increasing the amount of nitric oxide, which will dilate your blood vessels. However, it can also bind directly and constrict the smooth muscle in your blood vessels as well, so constrict. The net result is that it's going to mildly increase your heart rate and your blood pressure, both systolic and diastolic. So you would think it's probably not good for your heart health. Well, studies have actually shown that there's an inverse correlation or a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease and coffee consumption. So the other components of coffee, the polyphenols, the chlorogenic acid, and the diterpenoid alcohols, they are very strong antioxidants and anti-inflammatory, which probably helps with reducing plaque formation and just improving vascular flow. So coffee also has a big role in nutrient metabolism. So sympathetic nervous system is going to stimulate lipolysis, so you're going to have a little bit more lipids flowing around. So it might help with reducing fat, but I didn't really look too much into research on that. There's really strong inverse correlation with diabetes and coffee consumption, as much as 33% less risk for females and 18% for males. So it's pretty significant. So the chlorogenic acids in coffee are going to increase the amount of GLUT4 receptors, which are glucose receptors on your skeletal muscle cells. That's going to increase the amount of glucose taken up as long as insulin is present. And also it stimulates insulin secretion, so that is less blood glucose, and it slows gluconeogenesis. So again, less blood glucose. And the interesting thing is that decaf coffee had the same relationship as caffeinated coffee. So it's probably more the decaf components or the other components doing all this work. So it has a couple system protections. It's been shown that drinking coffee reduces the risk of developing neurodegenerative diseases. Most common one I found was Parkinson's, which has to do with less dopamine in your brain. Caffeine also slows the formation of amyloid plaques, which is important for Alzheimer's. So very interesting. Liver function and mobility, or kind of liver health, is involved with caffeine as well, or coffee in general. So adenosine receptors in your liver stimulate fibrosis. So if you block that receptor, you're going to have less fibrosis, and the liver is going to be a little bit more mobile in that sense, or less stiff. Also, it was interesting that I saw that cirrhosis patients and liver failure patients had decreased level of liver enzyme function markers on blood tests when they drink coffee. And then I already kind of talked about this, but it also helps with preventing diabetes. So people who probably should be wary about drinking coffee, schizophrenics. So again, I talked about the dopamine in your brain. Schizophrenia has to do, if you have too much dopamine in your schizophrenic, it's going to exacerbate your symptoms. And I was talking about the reward center and dopamine. Drug abusers might see an increase in their feeling of rewarding after drinking coffee and abusing whatever substance. So caffeine negatively inhibits developing brains. It slows down the migration of neurons. So pregnant women, I know this is a very hot subject and it's growing. There's a lot of research going around it, but pregnant women should be cautious about drinking caffeine, not only for their developing brains, but also significantly, especially when you get to the higher levels of caffeine ingestion, increases your risk of miscarriage. And one thing I found interesting, overdose is very difficult. Like the lethal dose is about 100 cups of coffee, and caffeine itself causes gastric irritation. So if you're drinking coffee, you're gonna vomit before you reach any lethal dose. So the conclusions I found is that the current data does not suggest that it increases your risk of a bunch of different systemic diseases. It actually does provide some health benefits. It's a very potent mental stimulant that will negatively affect your sleep, and ultimately all things in moderation. All of the things all of the papers I looked at were studying between 4 or 5 or less cups of coffee per day. If you drink 6 or more, it's going to be bad for you. And I just want to end with that. The adenosine system is very complex. Like it's involved, ATP is adenosine, and adenosine is in your DNA. It's very prevalent. There's a lot of different tissues that are involved with the adenosine receptor pathway. Okay, and that's it. Does anybody have questions?
I have a question. I have 2 questions. The first one is about pregnant women drinking coffee. Did it say, kind of like similar to the red wine situation, did it say like there's a certain amount you can take before you get to those problems, or is it like they don't recommend you drinking it ever during the entire pregnancy?
So the study that I was mostly looking at was a review article from 2017. I'd imagine things changed since then, but they basically said any amount of caffeine is bad. Yeah, it mostly touched on the increased risk of miscarriage, and that was like 10% even increased risk at 1 cup a day or 100 milligrams. So.
Okay, and then my second question is kind of ridiculous, but did you see anything about, I know that it's saying that it negatively affects sleep, but did it say anything about how it might actually like sometimes put you to sleep? Because I've noticed I've been drinking a lot of coffee this past week just to kind of get me through the week. And instead of like waking me up. I've been finding like maybe 30 minutes after drinking it, I just get so tired and I knock out. But then like later in the day, I have a lot of energy. So I just like, I don't know if that's just me. I'm like having some weird side effects or what.
Yeah. A lot of studies looked at the EEGs of people when they're drinking caffeine immediately afterwards, and then when they're sleeping, and it's very clear that your brain is more active. I didn't really come across anything that showed that would make you more tired.
Okay, yeah, I figured that
I
out.
don't know. I don't know if that kind of answers.
I can say one possibility is like, especially if you're really pushing yourself and you're really sleep deprived, then, you know, caffeine is not gonna be able to fight that. So maybe it'll give you like a little bump. So it's like, all right, I'm like, maybe it's doing something, but it's actually your system is just really needs to sleep. So it doesn't matter. At some point, coffee is not going to keep you awake if your system is really in a place where it needs to sleep. So it might be something like that.
Yeah, and I wonder if it has something to do with, because I've only been drinking decaf because the regular coffee just gives me the absolute jitters. And then also, I wonder if it has anything to do with like the way I make my coffee. Like mine are usually a little bit more sugary, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
The decaf isn't going to give you the caffeine to fight the sleep as much, too.
Oh, not at all.
Yeah, there's like 5 milligrams compared to 100 or 80 to 150 milligrams. It's a big difference.
You don't want to fall if you're using coffee to stay awake, you'd want caffeinated.
Okay.
Also, one more thing I didn't talk about. The longer you're awake, the more adenosine builds up, especially when you're sleep deprived. It's going to really build up in your sleep regulatory centers. Make you feel tired.
Yeah. This is like, well, I don't know if people remember this old one. So, but yeah, cool. So the reality, I'm seeing there's definitely people who would like, so thank you very much. That was interesting there. And caffeine, and there's also not just for coffee, but for lots of other food. Food doesn't just give you nutrients. It also is the kind of the pleasure of the actual kind of experience of it, which is actually something that's important as well. So, some of it is just, it tastes good, which is, a benefit, I would say. So I apologize for for not having the time for everybody to share. Like I said, there is the module page. No, what am I doing here? That's not it. Stop. I want to do share screen. Where are my modules? Hold on. Here they are. There we go. So, you can go check out. Maya has we heard about a little bit from Amado about the omega-3s in the flax. Here you can read about them and their role in anxiety. Again, omega-3 is alpha-linolenic. That was one of the essential fatty acids that we talked about that you have to get from your diet. And, I was looking here. Lindsay was saying, again, I apologize, we're not going to have the time. Neurotransmitters and ADHD. ADHD is something that's really prevalent in our society. And understanding more about that, I'm sure, would be an interesting thing to look at. So all of these, actually, energy drinks, talking about caffeine, energy drinks as well are incredibly common and mainly about caffeine as well as other things. So I do encourage you to go check out these ones that we have not had a chance to go over but I do think it's important that we spend a little bit of time reviewing. So I think we're going to do that.